We have with us someone very special today. The first Sikh officer to have led the Indian Army, a generation soldier who received his officer's pips from his father at the passing out ceremony. His grandfather blessed him, saying, God willing, the son of a private shall be a colonel, and the son of a colonel shall be a general. His prophecy came true, and how? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome a man who wears many hats. General J J Singh, the 22nd Chief of Army Staff, former Governor of Arunachal Pradesh, and an author par excellence. General Singh, it is a privilege and an honor to have you with us on AIMA's platform today, and I do hope it will be the first of many interactions with AIMA going forward. No one can match the Indian Army on leadership, and AIMA is all about leadership and management. It is therefore not surprising that AIMA works closely with the armed forces for many years now. We work very closely with the College of Defense Management in Secunderabad, where we certify many of the advanced courses in management and also help facilitate industry interaction with the officers joining the course there. We have a similar MOU with the Naval War College in Goa. We have also worked with CLAWS on a number of leadership conferences in the past. We are proud of the strong relationship with the armed forces, and I look forward to continue and strengthen it further. Having General Singh today has made this relationship even stronger. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you. While we look forward to hearing from you on the trouble at the borders, can India win a two-frontier war, we would also request you to talk about your style of leadership, as that too would be of great significance and interest to all the AIMA members. With these words, once again, a very warm welcome to you, General Singh, and over to Mr. Sanjay Kirloskar to run the session now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you.
Like our Director General mentioned, it is my pleasure to welcome one and all to this very special edition of Leaderspeak. As Rekha mentioned, today we have General J J Singh, the former Chief of Army Staff, with us. General Singh, it's a real privilege to have you this evening. Thank you for agreeing to do this session for us. You've been an outstanding Chief of Army Staff, and you've made salient contributions to strategic thinking in the Indian Army. As scholar soldier, you studied command and leadership at various army institutes and have been a prolific writer on strategic affairs, especially the India-China border dispute. You have also authored a book on the subject, The McMahon Line, A Century of Discord. In fact, China has been a factor in your career since you were an NDA cadet. You're part of the NDA batch that was rushed into officer's role in the mid-1960s as India expanded its army after the 1962 war with China. You served with distinction on the most sensitive borders, including Jammu and Kashmir, Nagaland, Arunachal, and Sikkim. You're now a member of the Shiromani Akali Dal in Punjab and trying to bring discipline and gravitas to Punjab politics. General Singh, thank you for joining us, and a very warm welcome again to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is astonishing that hardly any bullets were fired on the India-China border for nearly 6 decades, despite the history of war and rancor. That looks set to change as soldiers on both sides are beginning to shove and hit each other instead of merely staring and shouting at each other. The rapid economic and military growth of both countries has fired up nationalism on both sides, and long dormant territorial disputes are boiling again. A negotiated settlement, to my mind, looks unlikely given the political climate on both sides of the Himalayas. Since 1962, however, India has had the luxury of focusing its military spending and strategy exclusively on Pakistan. But now a two-front war looks more likely than ever. We must find the personnel now and the weapons, equipment, infrastructure, and money to secure the thousands of kilometers of borders with two hostile neighbors who were friends earlier, but are now economically and geopolitically married to each other. In fact, they both describe their relationship as like between lips and teeth. Question is whose teeth and whose lips? India's size and geography requires enormous spending on protecting territory, And we must find ways to allocate more resources to defense while still having something to defend. Our army needs more technology to increase its bang for the buck, and our Air Force needs to plug holes in its fighting capabilities. The Indian Navy seems mostly an afterthought in India's defense considerations, though its importance has been growing over time as China builds its string of pearls around the Indian Ocean. The culture of ad hoc spending on immediate worries will make it harder to win a two-front war. With China looking for adventure and conquest, India's size and geography demand enormous resources to secure its territory. China and Pakistan are engaging India in a whack-a-mole kind of a war to sap its capacity and resolve. India's best chance of winning against this tease and tire strategy is to build its war fighting capabilities to the level of deterrence and to increase the cost of adventure for China by joining the resistance against China's expansion. On the lighter side, India could use the advice of the Chinese martial artist Bruce Lee, who advocated fighting without fighting. With these words, it's now my pleasure to invite General Singh to tell us about India, how India could win a two-front war. General, we have a format where you speak for some time, maybe about 20, 25 minutes, following which there will be a Q&A with our audience. Thank you. Over to you, General Singh.
Thank you, Sanjay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a unique privilege for me to be interacting with you today. And it's a very distinguished audience, not only from within the country in India, but also abroad. And I wish you all good health, first and foremost, because we are passing through this era of a pandemic. And also, I thank AIMA to invite me to give this talk and interact with you. The world, as you know, is passing through very turbulent times with international scenario undergoing a paradigm shift with the balance of power shifting from the west to the east. A multipolar world is emerging with China and India rising, and the equilibrium for peace and stability of the world is quite uncertainly in a poise, in an unbalanced manner, a matter of concern for the world. Over and above, the globe is facing an unexpected challenge posed by the coronavirus, suspected to have spread from Wuhan in central China, with millions of people across the globe affected by the virus, a highly adverse impact on global economy, and a complete change in lifestyle and working style of people. It's a catastrophe. Could have been avoided, but let's go to that later. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I had a surprise element in today's interaction, that was my speaking about leadership, my style or my way, because I believe surprise is a battle winning factor. It'll come more in my talk with you later. So I wanted to speak on leadership, which you were perhaps not expecting, but I would take this opportunity to share my views with you on this matter. Now, I've been given about half an hour to speak because that was the upper end of the envelope, and I will take it up to that time if you allow me, Sanjay.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So therefore, I will start now. We are dealing with two nuclear armed neighbors. And I will quote from leaders of those countries who matter. First, Xi Jinping. A good China-India relationship is an important and positive factor for maintaining peace and stability in the world, quote unquote. And the other person, because in China, the Pak chief of army staff matters, so therefore is General Qamar Javed Bajwa. He said the military is ready to back political leadership initiative for normalization of relations with India. Now, I wanted to tell you that this is what they say, but what they do is totally different. What you're saying, firstly, along the line of control in J&K, they are trying to infiltrate jihadis across to try and disturb the peace and tranquility and the progress of Kashmir in its development programs, and also cause dahshat. Dahshat means terror, and dahshat gardi means terrorism. So they are nothing else but trying to spread terror amongst the people. Now, talking about China, well, you can see now, fortunately, the timing of this interaction is with China playing some games in the eastern Ladakh region and along the LAC. My friends, I would like to tell you that we need to study both these countries and their leadership better. We at the moment are not uh, so clear about why China is doing what it is doing, although we are clear about what Pakistan is doing. So I think we must now uh, look at this two-front war. Can India win it? Uh, you know, what do we understand by two-front war? I would say that it would be a two and a half front war for us. That is what the Indian Army has been planning strategically to do. And I would say that a two and a half front war means that we face two adversaries together, plus a half front by the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, the proxy war, some insurgency or law and order situations in other parts. But I think we are fully geared to face this worst case scenario. Now, I've explained already the geopolitics and the international scenario, and I will quickly go on to the China line of actual control and the boundary. Firstly, the difference between the line of control and the boundary. The difference is that the boundary claims of both countries are very disparate and very wide. Maybe hundreds of kilometers between a gap between the two sides' claims, and therefore the two countries cannot reconcile them. But after the 62 war, um, what happened is that uh, China went back in the eastern sector beyond the McMahon line by and large, except for the area of Thagla Ridge. But in the Ladakh area, they remained on the Indian side of the claim line of India. But they said we have a claim because their main artery, which was connecting Xinjiang province with Tibet and Lhasa, Kashgar Road, that road was a very strategic road for them, and therefore they wanted a line of actual control which gave them sufficient depth for that road so that India couldn't interfere with it. Now they're creeping further west to try and get more, because they know that the weapon systems have got now a larger range, and therefore earlier they must have thought of medium artillery guns, and the PLA decides, and then the government of China follows what PLA advises. Now, according to my judgment, that PLA advice at that time was what was the line of actual control, which they indicated to us in one way or the other. But they have a line at 1959, they have a line in 1960, so, and they kept creeping westwards. And one was in 56. When we showed them that line, they said, no, the 56 line is a simplified version of the 1960 line. The logic is reversed, actually. That is just to give, the way Chinese speak in vague and indirect terms, like the east wind will prevail over the west wind, and when the right time is right. These are vague, meaningless kind of phrases, but they love to do that because they like to keep the other side in a bit of a quandary as to what they are planning to do. Now, you see, they now are worried that India is exercising greater control in our side of the line of actual control and increasing our communications artillery, the arteries, and also bringing in weapon systems. Now, you have seen the Daulat Beg Oldie Road is the one which was the root cause, according to me, of this current problem. That that they felt that if we build up Daulat Beg only into a strong base, then from there we can perhaps create problems for them if they do something. So actually speaking, they know India is never going to. India doesn't. India is a peace-loving country. We don't like to do adventurism, but we will defend ourselves with all the might that we have. And now that determination is visible to everybody all across the world. So that is the point I want to say. Now, in Pakistan, the IB is the first area which is international boundary up to J&K, and then about 700 kilometers of line of control, and then about 110 kilometers of the Siachen boundary, which is the AGPL, actual ground position line. Now, with Pakistan, we've had problems since a long time because they feel that they need to keep India, let's put it this way, troubled by some kind of jihadis who create law and order problems and terrorism in hinterland of India, as also they have agents and they have certain people who are supporting them, and also some who come in from Kashmir or from other sides and have the uh, agenda for creating a terrorist act. Now, this is where we have to be clear that we will have this problem. Why China is doing that in, let's see, in Ladakh, and why Pakistan is doing it in the LOC. Now, also China, if you recall, has done something in Sikkim side on the border. There's a pass, Nakula, and they've come up there trying to say that we are here. But it was a boundary which was sealed and signed, and the Chinese have accepted that in 1890. How can they suddenly come back and say there's a doubt? There is no doubt, it's a pass. That side, the northern side is China, the southern side is India. So there's no question, but they wanted to create some, let's put it this way, turbulence over there, and peace and tranquility to be disturbed. Much against all the agreements signed in 93, 96, 2005. Now, these agreements have said neither side will try to alter the status quo. And what they have done in Ladakh and trying to do in other areas is to do precisely that. Now, after I spoke the Chinese president's words and his meetings with Prime Minister, all these things don't fall into place. So therefore, my view is that China cannot be trusted, and we have to ensure that we are strong enough to face them, and also face them in case China and Pakistan collude together. We have to have strength to face this kind of a multiple threat. Yes, China has got ambitions to be a world power. And I must tell you, having studied them while researching for my book, Xi Jinping is not the author of their century worth of preparations for becoming a medium power with a, you could say, a reasonable degree of quality of life. And then comes they're becoming a world power when they do 100 years of their independence, or becoming a nation in 1949. You see, in 2049 is 100 years. So they think in terms of centuries, whereas the rest of the world, most of us, we think in terms of 5-year plans or 10 years. We don't think of a century. They think of a century. And that is the difference which we should know, we should understand, and our leaders and our policymakers at the highest level must understand. Now, when we say a two-front war, then firstly, it's not a light matter. It's a serious matter. We have to understand. And it is not that armies fight with each other or armed forces fight with each other. It is a war is an act from a nation to another nation. When they think that other things have failed or they want to be aggressive, they want to do it, it's a national decision. So when it happens in our case, I would like to remind all Indians, please read Article 51A of the Constitution of India, where every citizen is supposed to be interested or involved or concerned about the defense of India. And also they have role and responsibilities in respecting the flag and the national anthem, and also for civil defense Now, when we see a lot of things happening in India, it is the people of India who should be more alert now. Because if we are facing a challenge, before the challenge comes on us, we should take actions. What I mean by this is that supposing there is a railway train which has uh, had an accident, supposing there is a fire in a very important building, supposing there is a dam which suddenly starts leaking. Now, there are acts, this could be sabotage. This could be the fifth columnist here. We must not take it lightly. For example, which country in the world in 21st century says this fire broke out because there was a short circuit? I mean, we are not fools anymore. Our wiring systems have improved. And in any case, if they have not improved, our bureaucracy must give orders to everybody and they must wake up themselves. Where is the question of an excuse of a short circuit of wiring which led to a fire? Sometimes these fires are intentionally only on the fifth floor, where there are some records which they want to destroy. So they first burn the record, then they make a they make a short circuit story. We should not buy it. We've had ammunition dumps blown up. I would say crores rupees of ammunition blown up. And that time, when we investigated, I felt that it could be also a sabotage, not excessive heat, because excessive heat happened after that and before that also. The world is getting warmer. Why aren't these accidents happening now? So there is something more to it, which we all nationalistic persons and nationalist citizens of India should be careful about. Now, we talk about, gentlemen, comprehensive national power next. A country's strength is its comprehensive national power. That means it's not just the armed forces, it is the willpower and spirit of the leadership and the people. It's also the, effect of the economy, the impact of the economy, and then how law and order is being managed and maintained. And then we talk about the various other factors like the nation's relations with other countries, all that, the diplomacy, the political setup with the equation with foreign powers also, all that adds to your comprehensive national power. And also we'll talk about soft power. Soft power also gives you a hold. For example, now why Chinese have got a Confucius Institute in most countries, in many capitals. Why don't we have a Chanakya Institute in all capitals in many countries where Chanakya Niti is taught, as also we have yoga centers all over which represent our civilizational, cultural heritage. This is soft power which we must learn from others. If we are behind schedule, no problem, we'll catch up, like we are catching up in many other things. Now, I would say a question of a two-front war is not very likely for the simple reason that the world may not allow it. The moment world realizes that there are going to be some, let's put the adventurous or miscalculated actions by either Pakistan or China, they're going to give a warning to them. Then listen, India is not alone. And now India is in the most favorable position. Maybe our country's stars are on the ascendant, and I don't believe in astrology, but we have to work hard to be where we should be, and we will be there. According to my judgment, India will be a medium level power in another 20 years, and we'll be a world power after 50 years from today, that is 2070. I may be not there, but you may be also not there, maybe, but the world will see it. Our next generation, our children will see India as a world power, because we have all the fundamentals in place. Now, again, a lot of people have this doubt. What will happen? Will China attack? Will there be a war? I don't think that is logical at this moment, because China, as I told you, the ambition is to become a reasonably modernized country by this year, but because of pandemic, it will be delayed by 5 years. But if there's a war between India and China, and it may not just remain in the borders, and it may also be into a global situation, because combined, India and China are 1/3 of the world. So if 1/3 of the world is at war, there is a world war. So we are not going to be excused from this irrational step. And China knows it better than us, because now they are isolated. Xi Jinping doesn't know how to get out of the corner in which he has boxed himself in. he is cornered not only by internal dissension now, which is emerging slowly amongst his army, also in the PLA, but the people are questioning, why are we not told Corona happened how? Why are we not told how many people have died in East Ladakh, in the area of Galwan? Why are we not told so many other things? And why are we being repressed? So therefore, he's got that internal problem. He's got a problem in South China Sea. He's got a problem with Taiwan. He's got a problem with the Hong Kong. And I'll tell you that he's also added this LSE with India as another problem. Why has he opened so many fronts? Maybe his advisors have advised him wrongly. Maybe he has miscalculated India's determination to defend itself and not to tolerate this nonsense of salami slicing. I don't want this word salami slicing to be used at all, because India is not going to tolerate it anymore. They must have got away with it earlier. But do you know, in my research, I also found out from the biographer of the previous 13th Dalai Lama, the biographer was Charles Bell. And he says, the Dalai Lama once told me, the Chinese are very clever, they're deceitful. He said, why? He said, first they take one step and look left, right, and say nobody's done anything. Then they take a second step, and then thereafter they're all over. That means he's at that time said Nepal and Bhutan and Sikkim will also one day get eaten up by China. Now, if we haven't learned from such history, if we haven't got ideas from that, we should not have a doubt now that China will not spare anybody who is weak. So we have to be strong, and strength will get us respect. Now I'll talk about battlefield Tibet. Relative strength between India, China, and Pakistan is also important. Battlefield Tibet means assume that you are in Tibet. You've seen it now with the satellites. China can't hide anything, not only from us, but not even from their own people. So therefore, it gets exposed who went where, who is on which side of the LAC. So China can't bluff anymore like Pakistan. They always bluff that in the case of Kargil, they said, the LOC is not clearly defined. When we defeated them, we captured their maps. We showed this is Pakistan survey map, and the line of control is clearly marked. What are you talking? So we are dealing with people who you can't trust. In case of Pakistan, I can say it's a rogue nation. But anyway, people say we should a stable, strong Pakistan is good for us. I said, no, if they want to implode, let them implode. We'll deal with 2-3 small countries. And that is like Yugoslavia. It broke up into Czech Republic and so on. We all know. So that is what I would like to highlight. Then I would like to say that for relative strength, that China's army is so big, China is so big in land mass and this and that. I'll say simply China and Pakistan both have own internal problems. Plus, China's major threat is on its eastern frontiers along the coast against Taiwan, against the possible attack from Japan in case they create a problem. So they can't divert all their strength into Tibet. And in any case, coming to Tibet, which is about 3,000 kilometers, imagine moving your entire strength from Kanyakumari up to Leh. It is like that. 3,000 kilometers is the center from Beijing to Lhasa, or Beijing to the border here. So what I'm saying is China is not easy for them. They may have more tanks. They may have, in this terrain, you can't use tanks. And your infantrymen, their infantrymen are no match to India, because people don't know. Their soldiers are given a conscription for 2 to 4 years. And once in Sikkim, a brigadier of Indian Army and his wife were talking to a Chinese brigadier and his wife on a meeting. And after the meeting, they had a quiet lunch or they had a coffee or tea. And my brigadier's wife says, Mrs. So-and-so, why are they clapping and why are they dancing? She says, they finished the 4 years. Now they're going back. So this is the motivation level. How can they match our soldiers? No wonder they got it very badly and they were given a bloody nose in Galwan. The graveyards are there. Now people in India were criticizing Indian Army. And now what are those people going to say? They'll hide behind some excuse or the other. Indian Army has produced the results which were required. And they may at night have transgressed a little bit to take revenge. And they did the revenge so that China will think 10 times before doing anything like that. Now here also, what happened on 29th and 30th night, again is an example where they tried to come and occupy a dominating position, but they found that the Indians were already there because this was our side of the LAC. And therefore, I think Chinese have understood. If they have not understood, Xi Jinping will have to tell them to wake up, otherwise they will suffer more. The cost will keep going up. Now, we also, Pakistan, we should not talk about Pakistan. It's not in the same league as us. Because why I'm saying this is that they have our army, which is almost half our army. They have armor, artillery, whatever way you look at it, much less. They are no threat to us on their own. In fact, if they do a misadventure again, they may lose a part of their country. So therefore, they will not do it. So we should not think of them. They are not in the same league anymore. And also, they have their own internal problem. They are financially bankrupt. Their country is being bailed out sometimes by China, sometimes by Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia has washed their hands off. America has also almost washed their hands off. They are depending on China, but the Chinese are too smart. Chinese never give loans without interest, and Chinese will never gift money to anybody, including Pakistan. So all the fair, good weather friend, all weather friends, and high, their friendship high as the Himalayas and deep as the oceans, all that is bunkum. When it comes to brass tacks, China will not support Pakistan to that extent which Pakistan expects. So they will not do it. Now, what happens to us now? Depending upon the situation, we'll be able to handle this two-front challenge by having a primary and a secondary front, a primary and secondary force, which will handle depending upon the threat. So we could have a major force along the northern borders and a strong deterrent force which can punish them also on the western border with Pakistan. So I think, and our armed forces are capable of doing it, and our armed forces are practicing and rehearsing, like exercise Gagan Shakti of the Air Force, validated this theory that they can handle this kind of a threat and they can switch forces from one side to the other because people don't know the ingenuity of Indians. All right, next, I will come to the 21st century war. Now, all of us don't have an idea what it will be. Even I feel that I'm overtaken by events. And you have artificial intelligence coming in, space warfare, electronic warfare, network-centric was there in my time also. But many others are now emerging as new technologies. And that is where the AIMA comes in, that your brilliant brains must contribute to India coming up with also some of these scientific inventions and weapon systems made in India is a very good slogan. We should try to endeavor and achieve that, for which the government must give more money to the, shall we say, research and development, and more money to 2-3 companies whom they identify who will produce a particular weapon system. And government should say, all right, like France does or like America does, we will invest 30% and you do the rest in R&D. And when you make it, then we'll try and export it also, because the French are clear. If they sell 4 Rafales, they can afford to put 1 into the French Air Force. So there's the way countries are thinking. And I wrote about it in my NDC thesis almost 25 years ago. But who reads the thesis of the National Defense College? It goes to all the officials in the government of India. But you know how they are. They think they know all. Anyway, now I'm talking about the structural changes in the Ministry of Defense. These have taken place as CDS is in position, and theater commands are going to come up with more synergy and integration and jointness amongst the 3 services, and also economizing so that our money is not spent by 2 arms for the same purpose. Now, then I would like to say that if China and Pakistan want to carry out a misadventure, China must first realize that the backyard is going to burn in Tibet. The Tibetans are not going to support them, and therefore they will blow up a bridge here and there. India will also, then in a war, there are no borders. Our special forces will go in and take action wherever they want. China should be careful. And also, I would like to say that, in case of Pakistan, they must understand that they have more problem internally. Pakistan people are saying, forget Kashmir, Kashmir ko छोड़ो, जो बचा हुआ पाकिस्तान है उसको तो संभालो. Baluchistan and Sindh is the issue which I am referring to, that if there's discontent there, Pakistan will break up. And I've forecast that in my first book, A Soldier's General, that the button has been pressed, the fuse has been lit. It's the people of Pakistan who can stop it from imploding. And now here I'm saying, for a boundary problem, you've seen number of talks taking place. I wish the people who are in authority hear me when I say that in my book, Mahmoud Online, I said that two political leaders should meet. Xi Jinping is a strong leader, and Shri Narendra Modi ji is also a very strong leader. Both of them should meet after properly being briefed by his staff and by our experts, but they should meet without any aids. And there they should take a decision that, look here, for both countries, the welfare of millions of our people, and for spending the money which we are spending in Galwan or in Nakula or in Arunachal Pradesh and on the other side in Tibet, please, we'll save that money for development of our countries and become leaders in the world. That may be a political coup. I repeat, it's a political coup that can resolve this problem. And you also, Sanjay, mentioned about it, but you were not so hopeful. I'm hopeful that finally one day they'll say these interaction and military level talk, political talk, dialogue, these will end at the foreign minister level, but finally it will be and if the two of them do it, they will be remembered in history. They'll make their mark in history. I will also say, if a two-front situation comes in, one side we will defeat and one side we will contain and have a strong deterrence posture and make a misadventure extremely prohibitively costly, militarily, politically, economically, and financially also. Now, India's aim, as I said, is to become a regional power in the near future and midterm future, and a world power in the long-term future. That is going to happen. Now, at this stage, I feel that India also must not be worried about China having a landmass almost 3 times our size. But do you know, nothing grows in Tibet, nothing grows in the Gobi Desert, nothing grows in the areas which are in Mongolia. I mean, that cannot be compared with a fertile land like India, where everything is arable. With little water and a good monsoon, India is always on the pig's back. So therefore, I think we should not worry too much about it. And then the willpower and the determination that we are showing now, Nishchay kar apni jeet karu, is our scriptures also say that. So we will win because our cause is just and our path is righteous. Now, Sanjay, I think I will take only about 5 minutes on leadership my way, if you permit, because I don't know how the audience is reacting to what I'm saying, but I want to just cover some of the things. I want to just tell everybody, a lot of criticism is done of generalship, and they only say, oh, it's the junior leaders who are doing it and the soldiers who are doing it. I think they cannot win wars without leadership from the top. And I want to emphasize that I was chief, but I think many things which I did as a chief, nobody probably knows, but they were good for the army and they made sure that we get modernized, but a little faster would have been better. I still appeal to the government, let us modernize a little faster so that we are stronger, because I must tell you, simply this Chinook helicopter and the 777 ultralight howitzer, this was not a brainchild of the Air Force or the artillery of Indian Army. My idea as a chief, I said we should have a capability. To build this capability, it took us 10 years. And that's why I'm saying, I tell my gunners, including one army commander of the artillery, who did not agree with my proposal. Today they are showing off this gun. They're showing off the Chinook everywhere. I want to ask the air chief, was it in your drawing board? No. You were wanting fighter aircraft. But here is a package which I said, unless we have these heavy lift helicopters, whichever they are, the government should decide. But we should have the ultralight howitzer carried by them and put in any places which no roads exist also. With a lot of ammunition and spare barrels, fire the hell out of the adversary. Now, these are things which I wanted to also share. Now, a leader, first and foremost, he should be share dil. Share dil means lion-hearted. He should not worry about small matters, and he should accept mistakes being made in good faith. Now, this applies to all across the board, including the industry, the civil services, political leadership also. I think a good faith, otherwise you're killing initiative. Between Chinese army and our army, we are stronger because their soldiers are firstly conscripts. Secondly, they only do what they are told. Our soldiers and our NCOs and JCOs are so trained that they will use their initiative. For example, what happened in PP14 was a level of a company commander, not the army chief, not anybody. He said, I'll talk with them. And so did the unit do, so did the brigade do, and they gave Chinese a very hard knock. Now, I will say, well, on leadership, many books are there, so I don't want to go over that because then that can be studied anywhere. But I would like to say what made me rise up to a chief from second lieutenant to a chief. Firstly, everyone must know that we have a very, very steep pyramid. At the rank of major to lieutenant colonel earlier, today, lieutenant colonel to colonel, there's a 50% cut. 50% don't make it, they retire as majors and lieutenant colonels. They should go into industry and industry should take them because they're very good officers. Out of 10, 15,000 applicants for NDA, only 300 make it. So they are the best. But amongst the 300, only the top will go. So top 150 go there. Then out of 3 colonels, only 1 makes it to a brigadier. So you take off another 60% off from those very few. And brigadier onwards, it's only about 6-7%. Right. Now, I must say, to reach the chief, you have to be born lucky or work hard. And if everything else is favorable, you will become. I don't say that I'm great, but I always say that I worked hard and God was kind to me. He heard my prayers when I was in trouble. Now I will talk about what I felt was बुद्धि बुद्धि जो भगवान ने दी है इसको इस जन्म में यूज करने के लिए दी है नहीं तो उसको लॉकर में डाल दो and don't think, just do what run of the mill is and bhed चाल is, वो नहीं चलेगा. So therefore I feel that you should realize that innovativeness, doing unexpected things, originality will matter a lot, and doing the unexpected things. So that surprise factor is there, which I told you that my surprise today was this talk. You don't give your wife a card on the birthday you had it, or you don't give her a bouquet of flowers. But how many of us have given our children a bar of chocolate, put it under the pillow, and when he gets up, he says, oh, wife, it's not my birthday or something. You know, your homework was very good. You got 10 out of 10. Very good. So therefore, this is for that. The thrill he will have by receiving that unexpected gift would be much more than what you give when it is expected. So now, lead by example from the front, no double standards. These are some of the very basic things. Whether you lead a section of 10 people or you lead a division of 20,000 people, basic principles remain the same. Also for the civil services and the industry, the same things apply. Except for there are 3 differences. In the case of the armed forces, first, national honor is at stake. You cannot come back and say, we got the silver medal, we were the runners-up. So you have to win and win by a knockout. This is what I have said and is being quoted. Second point is that one small mistake by a soldier in the front can create a catastrophic impact on peace and tranquility, can start a war. So therefore, this cannot happen in the industry. And therefore, you have to understand that this is also a major difference between the armed forces. Maybe convince people, but here we have to produce results. And if we had not seen so many graveyards in China, we would have felt that possibly Chinese got the better of us. Today, those results are visible to you and they speak for you. One must train juniors and successors. So that is another very important point. And motivation and esprit de corps, these are important points as well, that a motivated soldier will work better. And for that, you have to have, like, if you want to win a race and you're a horse trainer and you're training a, let's say, uh, uh, pedigree horse. If he is tired and exhausted, how can he win the race? You want him to be rested and mentally and physically so that he can be cool and calm and win the race. How I used to ask in Sainik Sammelas to my soldiers and to my officers, JSOs, NCOs, that if you keep your men exhausted by running around in circles, how will they win the war for you? You want them raring to go. I said, रात को बैटरी को क्या करते हो मोबाइल फोन की? Then they all understood the point. I said, charge करते हो तो why not charge your jawan? Give them the time to relax also. Give them the time to recharge their batteries, mental and physical. I would also say that leadership is when the chips are down, when things are wrong. For example, there's a pandemic now. The way our government, the way our good ministers have done and good state governments have done is where the leadership comes in. Good leaders are found out in the times of crisis. And I think we are showing good leadership because our fatality rate is the lowest in the world. It's amazing. Our doctors and paramedics, hats off to them. They have done so well. Then finally, I would sum up by saying that the essence of all what I wanted to say is that as a leader, as a good leader, firstly, whether leaders are born or made, this is a question which some people discuss. It's all theory. Leaders are, great leaders, I would say, are those who have God-gifted intellect. That is God. The IQ is not your manufacturing, it's God's given gift. And who have been trained. Otherwise, there would be no National Defense Academy, there will be no Sandhurst, and everybody could be a great leader. No. You're not born, you are made, but with provided you have God-given intellect. You have to have that above average, otherwise you will not rise. And therefore, finally, as a good leader, you should know the way, firstly, knowledge, experience. Secondly, show the way. And thirdly, go the way. So, ladies and gentlemen, and Sanjay, I have enjoyed this interaction with you. Not exactly interaction, but my sharing my thoughts with you. Now I look forward to interacting with you, and question answers will be the next step.
Thank you. Thank you, General. I didn't want to interrupt you because Rekha told me that you have agreed to stay on a little longer. Your presentation or your talk to us has been quite interesting, and I can see that there are, at least on my computer, 64, more than 64 questions that have come up while you were talking. So let me start with the first one, and because you spoke about the Dalai Lama and about battlefield Tibet, because
Yes.
it's always coming in my mind. You know, you also mentioned that China keeps changing the boundary, and they say in 1967, 1956, you know, you gave all those different dates. And that could be based on the fact that China was dominated by the European powers in the last century, and therefore they're trying to get over that humiliation. But when they keep mentioning dates, do we ever tell them that at a certain point in history, Tibet was also independent and we share our border with Tibet? Why doesn't the government or the armed forces ever say that Tibet, we recognize Tibet as an independent nation, and therefore the borders, we don't have a border with China, and China should move out?
Actually, my book, the McMahon line, I'm just putting it here for your viewers to see, has got all the answers for this question, but I will briefly tell you that time is going to come when Tibet will be talked about, and the role of the Dalai Lama. He said, I don't want independence, but I want a very fully autonomous Tibet, which you promised. So Chinese are known, and they are very famous for changing goalposts. When it doesn't suit them, they don't do it. The agreement, why aren't you following this agreement? Oh, you see, we were weak at that time, so it was imposed on us. Now you are imposing the same thing on others. So that means you are having double standards, one for you, and now you're strong, so you want to dictate terms. That won't happen. So that is the answer. I would say it will probably the question of, like my book, I have talked about Tibet being a vulnerability of China. And if there is a problem, we will definitely exploit that vulnerability.
Okay, thank you. We have one of our past presidents, Mr. Rajiv Kaul. I think the AIMA has unmuted him. Mr. Kaul, can you please ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. General, what a pleasure listening to you. What a pleasure listening to you. I had the pleasure of interacting with you perhaps 20 odd years ago when I was involved in CII as their president. And you were sort of interacting quite a bit with us in those days at CII. But it's
Yes.
lovely seeing you again and hearing your views. Both on the leadership traits, and AIMA is very concerned because that's one of our very important facets of training leaders into becoming even better leaders.
Yes.
But my main question, of course, is going to be on the point of great interest, which is India, China, India, Pakistan, and Pakistan and China being very close to each other today, and India, in a way, being close, but to someone who's very far away, basically the USA. Now, you had mentioned as a suggested prescription that it's time that Modi and President Xi sit together, seriously, properly briefed by both sides, and have a heart-to-heart chat about focusing on their internal problems, uplifting the areas of poverty. But my question is that today China's development and China's per capita income is perhaps four, 5 times India's. So they have developed a lot in terms of per capita, in terms of infrastructure, and before all this problem, about a year ago, I had the opportunity to go into the interiors as well. And even there, I mean, they are very much more advanced than when we go into our interiors, that is the villages. And I went to actually see a fair in a village, which was about 180 kilometers outside Shanghai, and it was very well developed, and there was the sort of houses, etc., were much cleaner and much better developed. So, I mean, how will the carrot of not sort of wasting money on defense, etc., uh, meet their objectives, which you yourself said is to, in a way, be the undoubted emperor of Asia, and that you said has been written 200 years ago. So that's my substantive question, sir.
I want to know basically between India and China, firstly, there's a civilizational difference, right? And
Yes.
secondly, they are following an ideology of communism. They are the only communist power in the world, or one of the leading of communist country. But India is following a democratic path, which is different. Are all Chinese happy and satisfied? No. So therefore, in case of India, if they're not happy and satisfied, they don't elect that leader next time, or they put a dharna, or they do whatever it is. There it's not acceptable. You've seen what happens to people who protest in Hong Kong, or Tiananmen was an example for everybody. So what I'm saying is, I think between the two systems, what is Xi Jinping's big worry? If India succeeds to become a world power, China will break up, because then it will mean people will say that system is better than our system, and therefore throw out the communists. I think I'm saying very seriously that China's worry is India should not succeed. One of the reasons, which is a very big reason, is ideological, and they don't want the ideology of the Chinese to veer from post-communism. Like Tibetans say, art Buddhism is more important than communism. They've just made this statement very recently. So what I'm saying is, I think India is on the right path. and India's fundamentals are in place, as I told you earlier, and India will rise. China may have put a question mark because there are two French authors who have written in my book. It is covered. Somebody can read it. It says that China could implode.
Okay.
Can
आपके
we
मुंह
have the
में घी
next
शक्कर,
question? Can we have
आपके
the
मुंह
next?
में घी शक्कर, sir.
Why not? We are on the
Yeah.
right path.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul. We have another past president of AIMA, Mr. Dr. J.S. Juneja. Could Dr. Juneja ask his question?
Sure. Go ahead.
Dr. Juneja? Rekha, is he on mute or?
Can someone please unmute Dr. Juneja?
Till then, maybe I could take a question from the audience. Rekha?
Shubham?
Ma'am, we have already unmuted him. He is a co-host, ma'am.
Dr. Juneja, you need to unmute yourself. You're still
now?
on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, General Sahab. And I think I must compliment you for a very forceful and analytic presentation. I think what is biggest learning for me today is that you're inculcating a lot of confidence in most of us. Yes, even both the countries joined together, but we are ready for that. That's what I'm saying. And I think they cannot fool us. That's put it this way. And that is my observation, and some friend of mine, we have been a little bit concerned what is going to happen. Number two, when you wrote the book Discord, and you had gone to China, how was your reaction? How was their reaction when you went there?
I'll tell you, I've been to China first as a Major General for a joint working group talking on the LAC issue with the Chinese. But we came to no conclusions, no decisions, because there was no discussion on the boundary at all. They gave us good Chinese food and they made us see the Great Wall of China. But because there had no authority to make a decision on the boundary. Right. Then I went as a Chief of Defense Staff. They gave me a red carpet treatment and they went beyond protocol because that's their style, that they want to impress somebody who comes from outside. Particularly in the case of India, they were confident that they will be able to try and convince me that they are good people. And they tried. My delegation was given very high protocol and also a meeting with their highest military people in the Great Hall of the People. So I would say experience was very good. But as I said, we must not lower our guard. We must keep ourselves alert because they cannot be trusted. And they have proved it more than once. They cannot be trusted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, General. We will now go to the questions from the audience. Mr. Subhabhatra Ghosh has a question for you, General. He says, do you think that both India and China would really engage in a war, or is this an economic war?
I think, as I mentioned in my interaction and my address, that war is not a light-hearted issue. It's very serious. And its consequences when all three countries whom we are talking about have got some kind of nuclear power. We have a triad. China has a triad, but they have much more missiles and much more nuclear weapons. But using one is enough. So I don't think that is, it will be mutually assured destruction. War is unlikely. Border skirmishes at a lower level might happen, but that also, I think one indication from Xi Jinping to his army that don't fool around, India won't accept it, and one from our side, there will be no bullet fired. How many people have died? How is it that there has been an understanding and a dictum given from the top that there is no use of force, means no armed force will be used, no bullets will be fired. So they may do all other things, but I think that also is looking a bit of a laughing matter, because the world is saying, what are these two countries doing? And we are, aspiring to be regional powers and world powers. We should stop this rubbish and pushing and throwing. And in fact, in the case of Chinese, I can see one video again and again is shown where a man pushes our guy. Our guy is more burly, Sardar tha. उन्हें उसको धक्का मार के दूर किया. Then he goes, takes out the camera and starts video photographing it. That means it was just what he was told, that take a picture, but before that push him. And he gave a big shove to him. What I'm saying is Chinese are people who at the moment cannot take any misadventure. It will be very expensive for them.
Okay. The next question is from Mr. Jagdish Khatri. He says, in the past few years, we've been witnessing a decline in the relationship with our neighboring countries. What do you think is the reason for this trust deficit?
Yeah, I think two things are there. One is internationally, we are being respected more than before. Our passport has a value which many other countries feel envious of. That is first. Internationally, our image has gone up. Indian, I would say, expatriates and Indian origin people all over the world have done a marvelous job. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate them, because they are also adding to India's soft power and India's image as a civilized country. And then I would like to say that within our neighborhood, we need to definitely give them a little more place and a little more latitude. And we can't say we will be dealing with you as, on equal terms. If we give you this, you give us that. We should give them a preferential treatment. We should not have a situation where Nepal, the only Hindu state in the world other than India, and India is not a Hindu state, but India is civilizationally Hindustan. So if Nepal and we can't get along, there is something which we should look into. Our foreign service has a challenge, and I'm sure they'll realize if they've made mistakes, they'll rectify them. The second point is Myanmar, we have reasonably good relations with them. Thirdly, Bangladesh also, we have improved our relations with them. Those, enclaves have been settled, and so much of other things have happened. I think things are moving. With Sri Lanka also, their president has made a statement. They've realized that they cannot do without having good relations with India. And India should say, yes, we are not a big brother. You are equal brother to us. We are like, equals. And similarly, Afghanistan, except Pakistan. But Pakistan, as I told you, is a country whose future you cannot predict. And it might just implode, as I said earlier. It's been given in my book. I'm not a fortune teller, but I'm clear that the fundamentals are not in place, so therefore they'll have problems. And they tell their army कि तुम हमारे देश को कहाँ ले जा रहे हो? हमारा रुपया बांग्लादेश के टके से भी कम हो गया है. That means Bangladesh, who started with zero, is ahead of them. So their people are questioning the kind of leadership they are getting. So I'm saying India's doing well. We are a role model. We are a role model nation. We are a role model army. And we are giving an example to the rest of the world, developing world, that this is the path which you should take. And China is trying to tell them, no, our way of communism, and everything is written, that their strategy with Chinese characteristics, their military strategy with Chinese characteristics, their way of life with Chinese characteristics, because they are emphasizing the communist way of life. The Communist Party of China is worried today that people are started questioning their ideology.
Okay, it's a lengthy answer, but very good. Then Mr. Rakesh Sharma says, good evening, General J J Singh. China is actually helping neighbors like Sri Lanka, Pakistan by giving money to them, issuing loans, and now in a position to purchase entire countries. Do you feel this is a problem for India, since in Asia, India is the only country that can challenge China? Isn't China trying to create a problem around India?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the countries are wiser now. Sri Lanka has realized that a 99-year pact was a mistake for Hamban Tota pot, right? Which China now is managing, and they will have it for 99 years. But let me just tell you that these countries have realized that China is a country which is very, very, shall we say, clear about what it wants to do and what's their national interest. It doesn't coincide with the country concern's interest. So even Myanmar is questioning some of the actions of the Chinese. And I'm sure Nepal will realize very soon that the Dalai Lama, who said that 100 years ago, was he right or wrong? In that Nepal is also on their radar screen. So making a railway, making a road, making a tunnels and all that. But eventually, if Nepal has to pay for it, I'll also now come to the CPEC. The you can say Gwadar, Xinjiang highway, the corridor, they say China-Pakistan corridor, is going to be very, very difficult for China to get out of. And it's going to be a disaster, in my opinion, because it is passing through Balochistan. China did not factor how much troublesome Balochistan can be. Now, if Baluchis start creating problems, how many divisions will Pakistan or China deploy to defend this artery on which they have spent many billions of dollars? So it's a liability for them, not only in the Baluch areas, but also in the Gilgit Hunza areas. Those Baltis are up in arms. They say, "Hamara land diya hai inko, hamari zameen di hai." Nobody has been asked to, be paid for it or jobs for them. No jobs in Gwadar are there for the locals, very few. Mostly the Chinese who have been brought in there. Similarly, in Gilgit Baltistan area, there are Chinese military and engineers working, and their civilians are just being trodden upon. So therefore, I think if they have to do all this, the Chinese companies who have invested billions, they are saying, where is our profit? This venture of Xi Jinping, this is totally Xi Jinping's idea. The Gwadar to Xinjiang connection, this China-Pakistan corridor, is not going to work out. According to me, it's going to be a big challenge because it's passing through territory where Pakistan themselves don't have control.
General Singh, let me interject over here. You mentioned Nepal earlier, and you also mentioned it as part of your answer. And you said that Nepal is the only Hindu country other than India, if we can say that. But Nepal is also run by the Communist Party of Nepal. And how do you think, what do you think will be more important, the political ideology or religion when it comes to relations between India and Nepal?
Yes, I think the ideology is being questioned and will be questioned if they don't perform. If they perform, it's good. But if they don't perform and the people's quality of life doesn't improve and industry doesn't do well and their economy is not good, they're going to say, well, let's try the Indian model because India is an example. And India's economy, but for the recent debacle of the pandemic, was going to do well. Indians are hardworking people. Let's not forget, we don't take a weekend off. You go to Europe, Saturday, Sunday, nobody works. Total, if you want to attack any country in Europe, attack them on a Friday evening and you'll find you to walk through to anywhere you want because nobody is working and they all must have, nobody is ready to sacrifice the weekend. For us, our rickshaw wala, our shopkeeper, our pan wala wants to work on Saturday and Sunday. He wishes there is another day so he can earn more, so that his children can be educated, so that his quality of life can improve. So we are hardworking people. Millions went on road by cycles, bullock carts, buses, trucks, in any way, reached their homes. I mean, government can't do everything for everybody. So therefore, the people are very resilient. And I was amazed to see people coming on the television and saying, "Koi baat nahi, aapko khana nahi mila, aapko ye nahi hua, aapke liye ye nahi prabandh." Kehte koi baat nahi, we'll manage. So that is India.
Well, General, you just forgot that we have now moved into September. Otherwise, the month of August is a holiday all over Europe, and you can hardly get them to deliver goods to you in the month of, or even answer your email because they're all on vacation and they don't like being interrupted.
Absolutely.
I'll go to the next question. Shashikant Goel, who's from Meerut Management Association, he's their president, former president. He says, General Singh, do you think India needs to become aggressive in some other area and cross the LAC so as to put pressure on China and bring them to the negotiation table?
Well, I won't share some of these, you said, contingency plans, because they are not supposed to be shared. But India is capable of doing whatever is required in the best interest. And I would say Prime Minister Modi has said so कि उनको उनकी भाषा में जवाब दिया है. तो उनकी भाषा में जवाब ये भी हो सकता है कि somewhere where our perception is different, we go and occupy that place. Then let them throw us out. So it could happen. I mean, Indians are good at least saying, okay, आपने अगर जो किया है गलत काम, तो हम एक दूसरी गाल नहीं दिखाएंगे. We will not show the second cheek. We will hit you back and give you a bloody nose.
There are a lot of hawkish questions on the chat, and I'm really I'm wondering whether to take them, because you've already mentioned that there is no question of war. The world won't allow us, any of us, to go to war. So let me take a longish question, which goes. It's from. It says OMPNA. I don't know. That's not a name. It says, good evening. Our two neighbors have nuclear weapons, which India also has. Will it be wise to use these weapons in the interest of loss of large population and all the assets of all the three nations? The urgent and real improvement in our niche diplomacy with superpower friends should be able to resolve the consistent conflicts. Are we doing enough or getting caught with our vested interests? Dr. Om Nangia, I think he is trying to say that, we have our own diplomacy that our government is engaging in, and how do we use it to ensure that, we come out on top?
Yeah, firstly, he talked about the nuclear dimension. Let me assure everybody here, nuclear weapons have such a catastrophic effect on not only the country concerned, but with the wind, by the dust flown, by various other things spill over to other countries as well. So it's going to be a world problem. And it is a weapon of deterrence and not to be used normally. But obviously, if something has happened to our country, which is so serious that otherwise, why are we having them? So India will respond, and our government has said the issue of first use will be reviewed if required. That also means that if somebody is trying to do something wrong, then we will calibrate and probably take action. I think that is what I understood from that statement from our government.
Okay. General, we are 15 minutes past the hour. How much time do you have? Because
I could take on another 15 minutes of questions. Okay. Because that's the most interesting part of my interaction.
Thank you so much. So Himanshu has a question. This is Himanshu Agarwal. He says, General Singh, excellent insights, great talk. Would be great to have your view on, number one, but I have not understood exactly what he says. He says, do you think an economic insurrection is a long-term hedge for military strength? And number two, your view on whether the 50% and above young population must undergo a year stint in the military to build a esprit de corps and a unified value system.
I think the point he is making is whether it's in India's interest to ensure that everybody, as far as possible, goes through a stint of military service. I think in a calibrated manner, if more people are exposed to the life in the army or Air Force or Navy, would be a good thing. Only thing is that we are also ourselves thinking how to reduce the pension bill, because that takes away a lot of our defense budget. And by taking people for 5 years, giving them a golden handshake, giving them an incentive for getting into lateral services, and trying to make a better life for themselves, yet having the military experience. So that is also on the cards. And I think our government is going to proceed in ensuring that we have an armed force which is motivated and well led, and these people who will come will be volunteers, and therefore they will do well.
I believe Mr. Agarwal has spoken about 1 year, which is possibly something like, I know Korea, Singapore, and Israel also have 1 or 2 years of service that most youngsters have to go through, and then they move on into civilian life. So I believe that's what he wanted to say. Ms. Sandeep says, can India make a difference by making it a two-front naval war, blocking the Straits of Malacca to stop oil imports to China, into China, as well as blockade the Gwadar port?
Well, let's say as far as the Navy is concerned, vis-a-vis Pakistan, we are much stronger. Vis-a-vis China, they have more vessels than us, but yet there's a distance. That is why they are making a port at Hambantota or in Myanmar or going up to Djibouti. They are wanting to have some base to keep their ships under maintenance or refueling or various other reasons. For them, this is an ocean which is dominated by India, and India should make sure that we have capability to deter anybody from interfering with the shipping of the world which passes through the Malacca Straits, and the world will help us in doing it, and therefore we don't have to worry too much. But having a two-front situation in the marine field, I would say not necessary at all at the moment.
Okay. Another question, I don't know whether General, I should be asking you this. Maybe it's more for a diplomat. Mr. Rakesh Sharma says, why doesn't India support the agitation that's going on in Hong Kong for democracy during the COVID pandemic? Videos of these demonstrations are available in the public domain.
Yes, a good question, I would say. And I would like to make a small comment here. There is a wrong perception in some people that we military people don't have knowledge of speaking about neighbors, and our foreign service feels very peeved when we speak. So
That was
you
my
also
question.
mentioned that.
Sorry,
No,
that was my
no.
question.
Let me tell you. I, in my process of rising to the chief, visited 60 or 70 countries. I've been to all 5 continents. I've met people at the highest levels, interacted with them. I've been given an award by the French president. It is Legion d'Honneur. I'm the only one who has got it. I was very fortunate that they chose to give it to me. What I'm saying is, my knowledge of China, my knowledge of Pakistan, my knowledge of Myanmar, of Sri Lanka, because we have served in these areas, is more than somebody who has learned his things in a library or in the office or reading papers and articles. I'm afraid that I say that the Indian Army has always delivered the goods, and we should be trusted to give frank advice whenever any decisions are taken, because when things go wrong, then we are asked, please handle the situation now, because you couldn't handle it, that's why. No, I think people should realize, and I said it is our bread and butter also, the army, particularly with Myanmar, with China on the Tibet border, with Pakistan on the LOC. We are also supposed to be participating, and we should have our place on the table to say what we have to say based on our experience and our advice. Decision is political. Decision will be the government. But we should not be treated as if our knowledge on such matters is less than that of a bureaucrat or of a foreign service man, of anybody else. So I think many of us, and you've seen many speakers today on national TV and all, they're speaking about international relations as well.
There's one more question from Mr. Rakesh Sharma. He says, and since you are talking about diplomacy, he says Taiwan has issues with China. Why don't we play the game that China plays and have good ties with Taiwan and support them to achieve independence?
Well, I would say, firstly, India should see our national interest first and foremost. So if it falls within the purview of our national interest, then we should take a step. Otherwise, we should not be talking like this, because the analysis will tell you many pros and cons of any action such as this. And if that's such, the bottom line is our national interest should come first. India should come first.
Okay, Mr. Anil Agarwal, and this is a question after my own heart. Why were we not Atmanirbhar in defense equipment in the last 70 years? Your comments, please.
I'm very, I would say, embarrassed to answer this question, because I feel that our own people are responsible for it. And am embarrassed because they don't feel guilty. We should have been. Our ordnance factories, majority of them came into India's share. And Pakistan has a bigger defense export business than India. How come? Where have we gone slack? Then I analyzed it when I was defense attaché. And in Algeria, they asked for a battery for one of their submarines. Can you get us a battery? We want to buy it. And I wrote to our government and I got a reply, sorry, we are not able to do that. We should have got it from any other source and given it to the Algerians rather than not helping them out. But there is a directorate led by a director only. At that time, perhaps Joint Secretary was also doing two other things. That means the importance we gave to defense industry. And I told you that my research thesis in NDC was strategy to boost India's defense exports. And in that, I clearly mentioned that we need an organization which will be able to create a conglomerate of defense industries. Like they have Delegation General des Armements, DGA in France. Similarly, in America, there is some consortium like that. And in Europe now, Eurocopter or Eurofighter has been made by a group of countries. So we should not only say that everything should be made here. Well, if something is cheaper and readily available somewhere else, we should take that as a component and make the thing in our country. So this all was discussed by me, but nobody read it. So I feel embarrassed to the extent that, yaar, mujhe sharam aa rahi hai ki they did not do their job. So it is squarely their fault. Secondly, they were vested interest in guarding these PSUs, and the PSUs did not come up to our expectations. That is why, as a chief, I'm a marksman. I always loved to use the air rifle and pistol wherever I went. And I told them, make a good carbine for Indian Army. We are using a carbine. When we gave it in 50s to Oman, Oman is a very friendly country to India. And they now, when I visited Oman, they took me to the museum. The carbine which is authorized to us now is in their museum. अब इससे ज़्यादा क्या अफसोस की बात है कि हमने उनको दिया as a gift and they put it now in the museum because it's a museum piece. And our soldiers don't use that carbine. But we couldn't produce one. I mean, what's wrong with our DRDO and others? And I'm telling you another thing which maybe might shock you. Not one IIT graduate is in any of the DRDO facilities. We've got 40, 50 such facilities. Somebody who's been to all of them said, not one IIT graduate is there. Why? Because we don't attract, and those who go, उनको नौकरी मिल गई, गवर्नमेंट की नौकरी चाहिए ना उनको, तो बाकी तो जाएगा ऐसे कॉपी भी नहीं कर सकते ठीक से. Chinese are good at reverse engineering. We could do something better than them, and God has given us a better IQ as a civilization. Indians are IQ as much, or they top all tests in USA and Europe and all that. The children are doing so well in their schools and colleges. They're standing first. My own secretary, when I was governor, he went, Ankur Garg, went to Harvard. He got 201 points out of 200. That is the caliber of our Indian mind. So what I'm saying is that India could have done much better. It's a shame. It's a real shame. And people who are responsible for that should be named and shamed.
General, many times I'm asked to participate in Make in India, the Make in India initiative. And I always like to point out that the British in the War of 1812 between the US and Great Britain used battleships that were made by Mr. Wadia. The Royal Navy bought ships made by Mr. Wadia in Mumbai. The rockets and the bombs that they used were copies of what Tipu Sultan used against the British in the first and second and third Mysore wars. We were good at making military equipment. And why does the government of India not allow Indian private sector to make defense equipment? I'm sure, I mean, the British deindustrialized us, but there's no, we can't talk about that now. We are on our own feet for the last 70 years, and we should be allowed, Indian industry should be allowed to make defense equipment for India. And I'm sure that we will make the world's best equipment like we used to earlier.
I'm in full agreement with you. There were vested interests. We didn't want such things to happen. Private sector must come in. It is not just the government monopoly to make defense equipment. It's not a holy cow. Everything is not so secretive. Some highly classified developments could be left to the DRDO, their brainy cell. But we can't say private sector should not come in. Private sector now, government has already taken steps. I think the new policies are encouraging not only that, plus foreign direct investment in up to about 69, 70%. So what is happening is that they will come, establish their plants here, employ our people, technology will remain here because we will be sharing it with others, and therefore India will benefit. And India should become, as I believe, should have already become. Now also we can catch up by becoming the hub of manufacture of many things which the world may need, and we will make it cheaper than elsewhere. So I think our industry needs to be given, shall we say, helping hand, as also a consideration, not to stop them from going ahead, but also by, as I mentioned in my talk, investments by the government, so that अपनापन भी होना चाहिए. आप अगर हमारे लिए गन बना रहे हो, उसमें हमारा contribution होगा, तो हम अपने अवसर लगा देंगे वहाँ पे. We'll put our people to watch, and अपनापन is what I believe is how our attitude is towards government supplied car, any other thing, government supplied equipment. We don't treat it as if it's our own. Our own TV set does not get spoiled and is always kept clean. But if it is a government supplied issue, I think we'll use the toes to handle some of the knobs. So this is the way it is. Apnapan hona chahiye. We should have ownership, our own ownership into these projects, and I'm sure we'll do it. And I think we have started doing it. The government has taken steps to encourage the private sector to come in. But I think the private sector's second problem is, I asked some people, they said, sir, what is the guarantee next year aap mere ko doge ke nahi contract? Now you must say, okay, you have invested money, this, that, and so at least we will give you for 3 to 5 years, unless your product is so bad that we have to cancel the contract. That kind of and orders, so that they invest machinery, manpower, everything. So they must not be left in the lurch. So that is what I feel. And the best company should be given a project.
Yeah. No.
Two should be shortlisted, and who produces the better product is the one who gets the contract. And the other is already been helped by 30% by government investment into it, and that is a factor we have to take into account.
I agree with you totally, General. I don't even mind 100% foreign ownership in defense-related companies, as long as a very high percentage of value added is done locally in India. And that is what ensure that our people are not only trained, the skills upgraded, but the technology will stay in India. And I'm so happy to hear that from you. So thank you so much. I'm aware that there's only 1 minute left. So let me wrap up the session. Thank you for a wonderful session and your very candid answers. You also spoke about leadership, which is something that India, AIMA is trying to inculcate and develop amongst Indian managers. I really like the answer you gave, Mr. Kaul, about the greatest weakness of China, which is that it is an authoritarian state. And it is going to be difficult to control if most of the world is against it. So I'm happy to hear that there is no question of war. Both cannot afford it, nor will the rest of the world be allowing us to engage in war. So it's up to our generation, like you said, to ensure that the next generation is on a firm foundation, and we are a superpower, like you said, in the next 50 years or so. Thank you very much, General Singh. It was a pleasure to have you with us this evening. And I'll now hand over to our DG Rekha Sethi because she always has the last word. I like to pull her leg, but she does.
Thank you, Sanjay, for your kind comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kirloskar. Thank you for always letting me have the last word. As president, you have full authority to have the last word, but thanks for being a gentleman. Thank you, General Singh. It was a pleasure having you with us. And if you see the comments in the chat box, I think it was a very successful session and a lot of learning from you. So many thanks for joining us. And I hope we can keep in touch and we can have you again on the AIMA platform. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. And
thank you, Rekha. Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you very much, General Singh. And we look forward to having you all on 7th of September for a session with Manish Sabharwal of Team Lees. Thanks everybody, and good night.
Thank you.